Hi everybody, it's Eugene Lisho and welcome to Click 3D. This is the program where we talk about all things photogrammetry and how you can use your digital camera to take some really nice photos and then turn them into 3D models with some photogrammetry software. Today what I thought we would do is answer a question that I get frequently on courses and even online, and that is if we can mix cameras when doing a photogrammetry project. So you can think of a few examples where this might be handy. So for example, if you're flying a drone and you're high above the roadway and you're capturing, really wide expanse, but then you want to come in and get something smaller or in more detail on the ground or something like that. Maybe you just want to use your digital SLR. So that's a perfect example. There may be some other cases where, for example, you want to get a wide shot on something that's in a tight space, but then again, you want to get close by using a macro lens. So what am I going to do here today? Well, I'm going to mix this up by using different lenses. So that's one thing I'm going to do. So I have a Nikon D1700. I've got my 18 to 140 lens. I'm just going to be using the 18 setting, and then what I might do is switch it over to like 140 or 70. So right away I've changed the focal length on the lens. Then I'm going to switch to a 40 millimeter macro lens. And when I do that, that'll be a fixed focal length. So I'll just take photos of something close up. And just to make sure that it's more complex, I've got an iPhone. So I'm going to make sure that I take some photos with the iPhone, mix that in there. And, not done just yet. I've also got, I'm running out of hand space. I've got a Samsung S21 phone. That's different, so I'm gonna try that. And one more thing. I've got a little point and shoot Canon S2100. Oh, I better not make sure I don't drop my lens. So I've got a bunch of stuff here that I want to try. And normally, I'm the first one to say to people, don't mix up your focal lengths, don't mix up your lenses, just stick with one camera and you'll be good to go. So it is a much simpler process if you're just working with one camera, one focal length, something that you can't touch or mess around. But hey, I can see why people would want to do this. There's a lot of situations where it may help. So let's get started. I think what I'm going to do is I'll probably just pick something to take photos of, and then I'll just switch it out and try some different things. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to start with the 18 millimeter setting, and then what I'm going to do is switch over to the 140 by rotating the lens here, and I'll be zoomed in. So I'll be running around. I'm just going to do the walls here. I don't want to be running around everywhere trying to find a beautiful place. Just outside in the parking lot here, it'll work just fine. So let's give it a go here, and I'm just going to take some pictures of the walls. Okay, so I'm done here with this. I'm going to switch to my 40 millimeter macro lens, and we're going to give that a go and take a few shots here. Okay, the Nikon is done. I am going to now start with the phones. Let's start with the Samsung. This is the S21, and I'm just going to go ahead and take a bunch of photos, maybe 15 or 20 photos or something like that, and see how that goes. All right, that's done there. Now, let's do the iPhone. There's the iPhone. Let's give it a go. Actually, the iPhone, I'll do the ground here. Let's see what happens. So I get a little bit more of the pavement. All right, that's good. Let me put that away. And now I'm gonna do the Canon S100. It's just a point and shoot camera. Get that there. Let's just shoot away similar photos. Okay, well, I think that's everything. So I've got a bunch of different cameras and stuff that I got to pull all the data from. So let's go upstairs, let's process this, and let's see what it looks like on the computer. So earlier today, I actually put something down on the ground here, and I took photos of this earlier, and I wasn't going to do this initially, but I thought, what the heck? So this is just a 1 cent, one euro cent, and I took photos of this with the macro lens earlier, and I thought, hey, you know what? This would be a good example of how you could mix things up. So, you know, you were here earlier in the day, you took some photos, and then maybe, you know, you want to mix them up and add them to your project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the photos that I took here, and I'm going to add them to the mix and see if I can get some really high detail on this coin over here. Okay, folks, so I'm at my computer here, and I'm looking through the photos. So just to put everything into perspective here, I was outside. I took a whole bunch of different photos with different cameras. So I had my Nikon, I had 2 different lenses, I tried 2 different focal lengths. I tried my S100 camera, which is a point and shoot camera, the iPhone 12, I tried the S20 phone, and I also had pictures that I took from earlier in the day that was of that coin that was on the ground. So I've organized all the images as best as possible, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to process these in 3ds Zephyr. So let's get started here, and I'm just going to do this in no particular order. So I've got a bunch of close-ups that I took, and I'm just dragging and dropping them in. So here we go, there's a bunch of those here. Then I'm going to go back and do the iPhone photos. So it looks like there's 21 of those. So I'm going to drop those in. Then I have the S20 photos, and there's 18 of those. So I'm going to drop those in. Then I'm going to do the S100. So that was the point and shoot camera. And there are 24 of those. Put those in. And then I also have all the Nikon images. So the Nikon images are, again, the 18 to 140 lens, I think it was. And so there's some shots that were taken at 18 millimeters, some at 140. And then I've also mixed in the 40 millimeter macros that are in there. So I'm going to drop those in there too. So I got a lot of photos in here right now, whole bunch that's in here. So I have 159 images. Okay, great. So I'm going to go next. And you'll see that it has a whole bunch of different things. Nikon 40 millimeters, and if I scroll down, you'll see 18 millimeter. I got auto calibrate unknown. That might be, oh, I'm not sure if that's the S100 or one of the phones. This is the 18 millimeters, more of them. And let's see, Canon PowerShot. So there you go. I got a whole bunch of stuff that's in here. I'm gonna go next. So the choice of category now may be important. And I guess I'll just say a couple of things. Normally, urban, okay, this particular setting, you'll see that it says the choose this instead of the close range category if you're mixing different types of photos, especially if the whole data set is not shot from the same distance. So typically I would choose the urban setting and then just go with default or deep. But I'm actually going to run an experiment. This is actually all close range stuff. So I want to see what happens if I choose close range and the default setting and then go forward from there. So like I said, normally choose the urban setting. Okay, that's what I would use over here if you're mixing up a lot of stuff. And each of these presets has different things that it's looking for. But we're going to do an experiment here. We're going to do close range and default, and we're going to go next. Okay, and I'm going to let this run, and it's going to cook for a while. It's going to take a little while to come together. I'm also not going to run this multiple times because there's going to be a lot going on here. And even when I start doing the dense point cloud and the meshes, I'm just going to choose standard stuff that I would typically use. I'm not going to go extra deep or get extra detail. I'm just more interested if I can bring all of these things together. So I'm going to let this cook for a little bit, and once that is done, we'll come back and I will show you the results for what we have. Okay, so the sparse reconstruction has completed, and what I'm going to do is just inspect all the images that are here, and I want to see if they've been reconstructed. And I can just scroll my mouse down. You'll see that I'm scrolling through the images, and so far we're getting yes, 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 which is good. And all the way at the bottom, everything has been reconstructed. That's great. So that's a very positive sign. Let's just make sure we can look at this and make sure it looks okay. And again, this wasn't like a deep reconstruction. Now you can see a little bit of noise. Okay, so there's a few points here, a little bit of noise here and there, which is not surprising. If you look at the camera positions, so you see I have the, this was the telephoto or the 140 millimeter setting. Then here I had some, I had probably the, what did I have here? The macro, probably the 40 millimeter macro from farther away. This is, some of the phones are here. So yeah, this is looking pretty good. I'm really surprised. Oh, and don't forget, if you get up close here, all these photographs that are here, okay, that's all from earlier when I took the close-up images of that particular coin. So that's pretty cool. I like that. And what I'm going to do quickly here is just check the orientation. Actually, what I may do is just tell it which way is up. I'm going to shut off the cameras, and I will just tell it which way is up. So I'm going to say the axis. So I'm just going to go here to here. This is the up axis, and let's see. Yeah, that's pretty close. Close enough. The other thing I'm going to do is just let me check the bounding box. Okay, that's all over the place. I'm going to reset that, and I'm going to reposition it. So going forward, so the bounding box is just going to tell you anything that's inside is what is actually going to be reconstructed. It's not going to do anything outside of this. And so I'm just going to narrow it down so I don't have a reconstruction in areas that I don't need. So that's okay on the top. I'm okay with that. And back here, somewhere around here, I don't need to go. I just want the little piece of wall, part of the floor here, or the ground in front. Yeah, that would be okay. And did I clip off? No, that's okay. All right, so that's good for the bounding box. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and do a reconstruction. So I'm going to go advanced. I'm going to go to the dense point cloud generation. I'm going to do all the cameras. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do close range and default. Okay, now I could do high details, which would take a while. I just want to do the default and then see what happens. So let me do that. I'm going to go next. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do something. I'm going to save this here, and maybe what I'll do is I'll come back and I may do this again. So let me just save this as reconstruction only. Okay, that's actually the sparse reconstruction only. And let me save that, and I can always come back to it. All right, let's just go ahead. Dense point cloud. Yes, please. Close range, default, fantastic. And I'm going to go run. And this is going to take a while, so we will be back. See you in a bit. So we're back, and we just finished the dense point cloud reconstruction. And you can see here that we've got some dense points. And right around this area, that's really what I'm interested in. Oh yeah, that's going to look pretty good. You can see how the density of points here is much better. You can see kind of where the photos are taking and how they're overlapping too. And there's the coin there. So I don't want to give this away right away, but you can get a sense of where I'm going with this thing. Now you can see there's a lot of noise, there's glass here, there were reflections, and so there's a lot of problems through the glass, and that's very typical. That's not something that is unique to the software. It's just the way it goes when you're dealing with reflections and that sort of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause here. I'm going to spend a little bit of time just cleaning up some of this noise that's generated on the edges. And after that's done, I'm going to process this into a mesh. And then from the mesh, we're going to texture it and we're going to see what it looks like. So just give me a second here. I'm going to take a few minutes to clean this up. Okay, so I've gone in and I've cleaned up a lot of the noise that was on the glass here. Not going too crazy on the door, but just most of it, just to get rid of it. It's not accurate data simply because the reflections are found in different photos in different places, and you get a lot of this just noise. So I just removed it for now, and what I want to do is create a mesh from this data. And again, I'm just using the standard settings. I don't want to go too deep or whatever. If I wanted more details, I definitely could, but I'm just going to do the standard mesh extraction. Go next, and close range and default is good for me, and I'm going to go ahead and click run. And again, this is going to take a little bit of time while this is processing. I'm going to press pause and I'll come back when it's done and I'll show you what results we have. All right, so I just noticed that while I was rolling around here in the dense point cloud, when I got close to this area here, you'll see that I've got this double line. And so I wasn't paying attention before, but this is obviously a problem. There's been some kind of an issue between these close-up images and the ones that are farther out. And actually, if you look over here, you'll see that even the wall, it's sort of stepped over here. So there's some ghosting, and that's clearly an issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to step one, and I'm going to see if I process this with the urban setting. That's the one that's actually recommended. This was kind of an experiment doing the close range, and see if the urban setting is going to help. And let's see what we get, and if this little portion here becomes corrected. So I'll just step back. Actually, I'll do this while you're here. I'm going to select all these images, and I'm going to make a new project from the selected cameras. And I'm going to go next. I'm not going to save this. There's clearly a problem. So we'll just do the whole thing over. And this time, when we go next, all right, it's got all the images again. Let's go down to urban, and we're going to do the default. So let's start with the sparse point cloud there. Let's see what it looks like, and hopefully it'll come together much better. And we'll just have to wait and see. So stand by, and we'll be back. Okay, so much like before, it looks like if I scroll through here very quickly, okay, it looks like everything is reconstructed on all the images, so all 159. So that's a good start. But what we have to look at now is the sparse point cloud. And actually, I'm looking here. Actually, this looks better, at least on the sparse point cloud in this corner. So let's see what happens if we just go ahead and process this now to the dense. So I'm not going to let you wait here. I'm just going to press pause and then come back when it's fully reconstructed. But what I'm going to do is just use the regular tools. So the defaults, urban and default. So before I had close range, I'm going to use urban and default now because that is the recommended setting. And let's go ahead and do that. Okay, be back in a bit. All right, so we've got our dense reconstruction here, and if I look around, let me shut off these cameras because they get annoying. You'll see right off the bat, like this area here is much, much better. All right, this looks all in line, very good. That's what we wanted before. So clearly, you know, sometimes with photogrammetry, especially when you're, you know, doing what I'm doing, which is experimenting, it's really a process of trial and error. And, you know, this way you can figure out, you know, when it works, when it doesn't. And we've just learned here that using close range has some risks, especially with the photos that I took, which were in fact really, really close. Most of the photos that were taken far away by the phone cameras and even the Nikon digital camera that was farther away, when I took the overall, they were great. But these ones where I went in close, okay, they caused a problem. But here, right now, that looks pretty good to me. So what I'm going to do is I am going to pause here. I'm going to create a mesh, and then I'm going to go on. I'll create a textured mesh, and then I'll show you along the way. I'll pause and just kind of give you a quick look. But from here, let me do some cleanup, and then I'll be able to move on to the mesh creation. So stand by. Okay, so I've cleaned this up a little bit and I think we're ready to go. So let's just jump in and go ahead, do the mesh extraction. And all I did was I cleaned up some of the noisy points that are in the windows or the glass, because reflections and things like that. There were a lot of reflections, so it causes a lot of noise. So I am going to use the urban and then use the default setting. I'm going to go next and I am going to go run. And just like before, we'll be back in just a few minutes. Okay, the mesh is done. And you can see I cleaned out the windows or whatever. I did that before with the dense point cloud, so it didn't build it into the mesh. But this looks better, that looks better. And we've got some decent detail on this coin. So that's a great start. So we still have to add textures. And I'm going to quickly do that. We'll see. Yeah, before I do that, I might even jump in and just see if I can fill in some of these holes, or maybe not. But let's see what it looks like. When I come back, there'll probably be a final textured model, and let's see what that looks like. Okay, so we just finished the textured mesh generation, and let's go in and have a look at what we got. So I did some filling. I just kind of very quickly got these windows filled. They're not perfect or whatever, but they're just projecting some textures on here. But what I'm really interested in is how well did this spot over here do with the coin. And I think this really makes the point about this particular video, and that is that you can mix different types of cameras to get you an incredible amount of detail. And so you can imagine if you are on a drone and you're flying high up, you've got a very, very large scale, you're capturing objects which are very, very far away. But here what you can see is, we can combine that, getting closer and closer and closer. So if this was an accident scene, if this was a shooting scene and you wanted to fly from the air and then get into, small scrapes on the ground or cartridge cases on the ground, or, if this was an archaeological site and you wanted to get into some of these small details, this goes to show you that it is definitely all possible with photogrammetry. So on that note, I want to say thanks very much, everybody, and we'll see you next time on Click 3D. Take care.